أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We are covering the life of the promised Messiah ﷺ in the last two durus. We were talking about the early life of promised Messiah ﷺ and then in his youth and how dedicated and devoted he was for the service of Islam. And we discussed some miracles and heavenly signs that Hazrat Masih Maud showed in the defense of Islam to establish the victory of Islam over other religions. We also talked about his prophecies, building of Masjid Mubarak, and some other events that took place in 1880s, the writing of Brahine Ahmadiyya. In the latter part, or still in 1884, the blessed marriage of Hazrat Masih Maud took place with Hazrat Nusrat Jahan Begum Sahiba, which we famously know as Hazrat Amma Jan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha. So I will present the history of Hazur's life from his marriage in today's dars. Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib, who was the father of Hazrat Amma Jan, he was in government service and he was working in the canal department. And he came into contact with Hazrat Ghulam Qadir Sahib, who was the elder brother of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, and through their connection they were acquainted to each other, and through that connection Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib first visited Qadian in 1976, where he met and had the opportunity to see Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, and he visited Qadian with his wife, and they both were very much impressed by the noble character of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ. Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib was one of the devotees from very early on, and he considered himself to be one of the servants of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, and he had a bond of brotherhood, and he held Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ in very high esteem. So he once wrote to Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ for prayers about the marriage of his daughter. And it so happened that Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ had received some revelations regarding his second marriage. A little bit about his first marriage with Hurmat Bibi Sahiba. He practically, after the birth of his second son, Mirza Fazal Ahmad Sahib, soon after that, Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ was living in a state of separation for the most part. And one of the main reasons of that was that his first wife, Hurmat Bibi Sahiba, was the relative of Mirza Imam Beg and Mirza Nizam Beg, who were the cousins of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, and they were always very much against Masih Maud ﷺ. They were non-religious themselves, they had no interest in religion, they were actually siding with the opponents of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ throughout his life. And his first wife, Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ's first wife, also had inclination towards that side of the family, And that's why Hazrat Masih Maud Islam's relationship with his first wife was in a state of separation, just because she was not interested in religious matters, and she was actually opposing the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. So Hazrat Masih Maud Islam was receiving these revelations regarding his second marriage, and this is actually a fulfillment of a grand prophecy of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well, that one of the signs of the Masih and Mahdi was that he would marry and he would have a son. And to distinguish the marriage of the Masih and to talk about the progeny that he would have, a son, clearly speaks to something of greater importance. Because ordinarily people all the time, they get married, they have children, but to specifically mention it as a sign of the truth of the Messiah of the latter days, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam specifically mentioned about the marriage, and he mentioned about a blessed son, which we all know, and we will later cover in the prophecy of Hazrat Muslim Maud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu as well. So Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam received this revelation, and it is such a beautiful, carries a form of prophecy as well. And yesterday we learned that when Masih Maud alayhi salam's father passed away, he was very much grieved, and he got worried that what would happen to him in terms of his sources of income that were mostly tied to his father. And then Allah Ta'ala revealed to him that is Allah not sufficient for him. And as Masih Maud alayhi salam said that in his writing, that no father would take care of his son the way Allah Ta'ala took care of me. So in the same sequence, we can understand that Allah Ta'ala himself arranged this blessed marriage of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, and he very beautifully conveyed this to him. He says, Allah Ta'ala says to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, मैंने इरादा किया है कि तुम्हारी एक और शादी करूं, ये सब सामान मैं खुद ही करूंगा और तुम्हें किसी बात की तकलीफ नहीं होगी. I have determined to arrange another wedding for you. I will make all the arrangements myself, and you will not be put to any trouble. And as we can see in this revelation itself, that how intimate Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam's relationship with Allah the Almighty, God Almighty was. In another revelation, Allah Ta'ala says, Ushkur nemati ra'aita khatijati. Be grateful for my favor, thou hast found my Khatija. So with this background, when Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib wrote this letter of prayers to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam about the marriage of his daughter, Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam wrote in response and sent a proposal, his proposal for the marriage of Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib's daughter. And Hazur also wrote in that letter that please don't be hastily in coming to a decision about this matter. The hint was that Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib should pray on this, because from a conventional standpoint, this match, when Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam was about 50 plus years old, in 1884 this marriage took place, and Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam was actually 49, close to 49 years old at that time, almost 50. And Hazrat Amma Jan, Hazrat Nusrat Jahan Begum Sahiba was about 18 years old at that time. So conventionally, they were the family of Delhi, and one thing I didn't mention, that the family of Mir Nasir Nawab Sahib actually are the descendants of a very noble family of Delhi. There is a Sufi poet that has been in the history, Mir Dard, Khwaja Mir Dard. Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahab are the descendants of Khwaja Mir Dard, who was a Sufi poet of the Delhi, and he also came from a very noble household, and it was the family of Sadat, the family of blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his daughter Fatima. So they were from Delhi. This proposal is coming from Qadian, and at this point, a 49, 50-year-old person is proposing a marriage. Apparently there is no connection. Apparently there is one can object about this proposal. So that's why Hazrat Masih Maud said that don't be hastily in the decision on this one. So Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahab did not mention this letter to his wife, and they kept looking for the various proposals for Hazrat Ammajan, and finally a proposal came, and at that time Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahab said to his wife that, look, our daughter is coming up to an age and she's almost 18 years old, and at that time 18 years old was considered to be a prime age for marriage. So he said that, are you just going to keep our daughter at home and not going to give, accept any rishtas for her? So at that time, Hazrat Mir Nasir Nawab Sahab mentioned Hazrat Masih Maud name as a potential prospect for marriage. And at that time, since the mother of Hazrat Ammajan had gone through a lot of proposals and she really didn't have any shara sadr on any of them, so when finally Mir Nasir Nawab Sahab gave the name of Hazrat Masih Maud, she accepted it. And then when she accepted it, Mir Nasir Nawab Sahab was so happy that he suddenly showed the letter to his wife, and then he wrote directly immediately to Hazrat Masih Maud, and that marriage was commenced in 1884 in Delhi with the dowry money of 1100 rupees, and Maulvi Nazir Hussain Sahab of Delhi, he led the nikah of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ. Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ had 10 children out of this wedding. 5 of those children died in the young age, and 5 of those blessed children lived longer, and we know them. I will read the names of his children. Sahibzadi Ismat was the first daughter. She was born in 1886, and she passed away in a young age of 5 years old in 1891. Then Bashir Awwal, which we famously know, was born on August 7th, 1887, and he passed away after 16 months in 1888. And then Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad, he was born in 1889. Then another daughter, Sahibzadi Shaukat, was born, and she passed away in 1892. Then Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahab was born in 1893, Razila Ta'ala Anhu. Hazrat Mirza Sharif Ahmad Sahab was born in 1895. Hazrat Nawab Mubaraka Begum Sahiba was born in 1897. Hazrat Mirza Mubarak Ahmad Sahab was born in 1899, and he passed away in a young age of 7 or 8 years old. And Hazrat Masih Maud was much grieved by his passing. And there is a famous couplet of Hazrat Masih Maud regarding that, Bulane wala hai sabse pyara hai dil usi pe tu jaan fida kar. He was very much grieved by the passing of Hazrat Mirza Mubarak Ahmad. Sahibzadi Amtul Nasir Sahiba, Sahibzadi Amtul Nasir was also born in 1903, and she passed away in the same year in infancy. And then finally Hazrat Sahibzadi Amtul Hafiz Sahiba, who mashallah had a long life. She was born in 1904. So these were the children of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ. In 1886, Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, under divine guidance, and he was praying for a revolutionary sign for his truth to Allah Ta'ala, and he was waiting for Allah Ta'ala to guide him where that sign will be shown. Finally, Allah Ta'ala guided him to take a journey to Hoshiarpur. This was in January of 1886, And Hazrat Masih Maud wrote to Meher Ali Shah Sahib that he would like to come to Hoshiarpur and reside in his place. He went to Hoshiarpur and stayed there for 40 days. It was a chilla, and he spent those 40 days in seclusion. No visitors were allowed to see him during that time. He did say that after the chilla 40 days is over, he will stay there for another 20 days to meet with visitors who would like to meet with him. He took 3 companions with him in this journey: Maulvi Abdullah Sonori Sahib, Hamid Ali Shah Sahib, and Fateh Khan Sahib. And these, as I mentioned before, that people were coming to Qadian, they were devoting themselves for the service of Hazrat Masih Maud. So these individuals went with him, and they were performing various duties to keep to upkeep for the household cleaning, cooking, and dealing with the guests who were coming during this time to Hoshiarpur. While he was in Hoshiarpur, Hazrat Masih Maud had a revelation, and he received this glad tidings from Allah the Almighty. Boreka man fiha wa man hawlaha. Blessed is the one in it, and blessed are those who are around it. Meaning Hazrat Masih Maud and his companions who were with him, residing in the house of Meher Sher Ali Shah Sahib. So at the end of this 40-day, on February 20th, 1886, that grand prophecy and revelation was revealed to the promised Messiah, ﷺ, which is known as the prophecy of Muslim Maud, the promised son. And Hazur received this glad tidings that he will be blessed with a great son within 9 years of time. From that day, February 20th, 1886. So Hazur published that prophecy in the newspapers far and wide, and people came to know about this grand prophecy of Hazrat Masih Maud. We will discuss inshallah that prophecy in more detail later on. In 1887, next year, Bashir Awwal was born, and it is interesting to note here that on February 20th, 1886, Hazrat Masih Maud made the prophecy that he will be blessed with a son, a great son who would be a Musleh for the mankind. And this is February 20th, 1886. On April 15th, 1886, a couple of months later, Sahibzadi Ismat is born. So now, this is again a sign of Allah that first a daughter was born, because someone could have objected if a son was born right after 2 months of proclaiming this prophecy, that through the ilm-e-tib or the domestic medicine knowledge that the Hakim or doctors or physicians of that time had, somebody could have predicted that Masih Maud al-Islam is going to have a son. But it didn't happen that way. He had a daughter first. So it clearly refutes any of the objections against Prophet Messiah al-Islam by the people who say that he may have made up that prophecy. And then Bashir Awwal was born in 1887. But then the son passed away, and people asked Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam whether Bashir Awwal is the son that is the promised son which is in the prophecy. And Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam kept saying that I have not been definitively told that this is the same son that is mentioned in the prophecy. So when he passed away on November 4th, 1888, that was a very difficult time, both for people who had devotion and dedication to Masih Maud al-Islam, his servants, his companions. It was a tough time for them, and of course it was a trial for the people who opposed him, because they made it a point of ridicule that, look, you just prophesied that you will have a son, and this son is born, and this son has already passed away, even though the prophecy clearly said that the time period of 9 years. But the opponents, they made a big commotion about this whole matter, and they opposed and wrote and against Promised Messiah alayhi salam, ridiculed him, and his some of his even sympathetic people who were sympathetic towards the Promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, they even wrote to him that, why do you put so much emphasis on these heavenly signs and these prophecies? So that's why this announcement is known as the Sub-Ishtihar, or the green announcement, because it was published on a green paper. So, what Muhammad Islam explained in his own writings about this whole matter, I will read it to you. The second boy, in regard to whom the Ilham said that a second Bashir would be given, whose second name is Mahmud, although to this time, the 1st of December 1888, he has not yet taken birth. But in accord with the promise, he would most certainly be born within the time limit in regard to the matter. The earth and heavens can stumble in their stride, or falter, or fall away, but it is impossible that promise extended by the Lord should fail to be fulfilled. Ignorant people laugh at the revelations coming from him, and fools throw ridicule on the pure tidings of joy proceeding from him. But this is because the last day is hidden from their eyes, and the final end is not open before them that they could see it. So the level of determination and his absolute surety that Allah, the word of Allah the Almighty, will come to pass is very much evident from this writing here. Then Hazrat Masih Maud explained a very subtle point in the prophecy of Hazrat Muslim Maud, and this is a very interesting point which we should all remember. Hazur writes, "To this day, we have not written in any ishtihar," meaning the announcement, "that this boy would have a long life," meaning Bashir Awwal. "Nor did I say that he was the Muslim Maud." He is referring to Bashir Awwal. In fact, in our ishtihar of February 20th, 1886, there was a prophecy in regard to some of my sons that they would die at an early age. Therefore, the point needs proper thought whether by death of this boy a prophecy had come to be fulfilled or falsified. Hazrat Masih Maud Islam is presenting a counter argument. He's saying, look, in my prophecy of Muslim Maud, I was told that some of my sons will pass away in early young age. So this actually is fulfilling the prophecy that I received, not the other way around. Then he goes on to explain another subtle point. In the entire number of the people among whom we have had this ishtihar distributed, most of them bore on the death of this boy. For instance, the following passage in the ishtihar of February 20th, 1886, that a handsome and pure boy comes to you as a guest, a mehman. The word guest used here seems to be the name given to the boy. It conveys the hint that he would pass away from this world soon at a very early age. So mehman, like a guest. So Bashir Awwal was like a guest who came to this world for a little while and then he went away. So these are the words of the prophecy. The word mehman is used. So Huzur said that is a subtle hidden meaning that is mentioned there. For a guest in any case is one who goes away soon. He departs while you stand looking on, watching him, and he wends his way. The man who stays behind, saying farewell to those who depart, cannot be called a guest. In the ishtihar under reference here, the expression that he would be free from rijs, sin, this also is an indication of a short span of his life. So that it is mentioned that he would be free of rijs, any sin, and we all know that children are free of sin, and especially the infants. This also is an indication of the short span of his life, as the Masih Maud writes. Nor should anyone fall into the error that the prophecy mentioned in the one concerning the Muslim Maud, since on the basis of ilham, it is been made clear that all these passages concern the son who has passed away. The prophecy concerning the Muslim Maud starts from the following passage, that is, with him is Fazl, who will come with his coming. So as we were saying that even in the prophecy of Muslim Maud, the first portion is referring to Bashir Awwal, and the portion that starts talking about Hazrat Muslim Maud starts from this line which says, with him is Fazl, who will come with his coming. Thus the name given to Muslim Maud in the Ilham expression is Fazl. Also his second name is Mahmud, and his third name is Bashir Sani as well, meaning the second Bashir. In another Ilham, his name has been shown as Fazl Umar, and it was necessary that his coming should have been held up till such time that this Bashir who has died should have taken birth and carried back, since all these matters in the wisdom of the Lord had been kept under his feet, and Bashir Awwal, who had died, was a forerunner, irhas. Irhas is a religious terminology that is used for a forerunner, somebody who has come before a greater being who has to be bestowed some commission from Allah the Almighty. So for example, it is mentioned that when Isa alayhi salam came to the people of Nazareth and to the Jews over there, John the Baptist was the forerunner of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. So irhas is a religious concept, and it is mentioned in the prophecies, earlier prophecies as well. So the similar concept Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam is mentioning here in terms of Bashir Awwal, that how he was a forerunner for Bashir Sani, which was as a Muslim Maud. This was the reason why both were mentioned in one and the same prophecy. So Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam is saying that, as a matter of fact, in one prophecy both these sons were mentioned. So this is the prophecy of Muslim Maud and the demise of Bashir Awwal, and some explanation given by Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. Then later on, as it is mentioned that the family of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam was very much against him, and they didn't leave any stone unturned in terms of hurting him or making things difficult for him. And his cousins, specifically Mirza Imam Beg and Nizam Beg, they were the leader of the pack, and they had practically become non-believers and almost atheists, that they didn't believe in religion, they didn't believe in God, and they were always siding with these Aryas of Qadian and the Christians who were opposing Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. So they were making mischiefs in alliance with Masih Maud alayhi salam's opponents. So there is a sign that appeared for the family of Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, and we can say that perhaps this was one a opportunity for the family of Masih Maud to mend their ways and to come back and submit to the will of God and accept the truth of Masih Maud. So that's why it is important to mention this incident in the life of Masih Maud because it pertains to the sign for the family of extended family of Masih Maud. So the sister of Imam Deen and Nizam Deen, who were cousins of Hazrat Masih Maud, her name was Umran Nisa, and she was married to Mirza Ahmad Beg, and they had a daughter, Muhammadi Begum. So the sign that was given to Allah the Almighty was that Promised Messiah ﷺ asked Mirza Ahmad Beg the hand of Muhammadi Begum, that Mirza Ahmad Beg should marry his daughter with Promised Messiah ﷺ, and Promised Messiah ﷺ wrote a very lengthy private letter to Mirza Ahmad Beg in a very sympathetic way, and explaining that why he's asking for the marriage of his daughter. Hazrat Masih Maud says in that letter, I have always prayed that God may show so manifest a sign that my relations may be able to test it. So I know that He has granted the sign for this purpose. Both of its sides are such that by testing them, my truth and falsehood can be found out. Just as this marriage will prove a source of blessing to you, in the same way, its blessings will extend to all houses of our kith and kin. It will affect all our brethren, so much so that it will create a new love amongst us. It may be hoped that through this love, the irreligiousness spreading in our homes will be removed. And Hazrat Masih Maud was very much reluctant about this second marriage with Muhammadi Begum, but this was the decree, this was the divine decree, how Allah Ta'ala commanded Masih Maud to do. And he said that as I see that this matter is decreed in every way in the heavens, and that opposition to it will meet with divine wrath, therefore I would satisfy you fully that this marriage will entail no hardship. So Hazur is writing this in complete sympathy to Mirza Ahmad Beg in a very private letter, and he turned around and he published that letter in the newspaper without naming the person, and then they made a big commotion about this fact that look, this is what Mirza Sahib is trying to do, and they turned around and start opposing this, and Mirza Ahmad Beg did not agree to this marriage at all. And the sign was that if Muhammadi Begum were to be married to another person, Mirza Ahmad Beg, who is the father of the girl, would die within 3 years of that marriage, and the person to whom Muhammadi Begum would be married to, that person would also die in 2.5 years after the marriage. So this was the sign, and this was shown as a sign to test the truths between the truth and falsehood of Hazrat Masih Maud for his relatives. So they did not accept the marriage, and they married Muhammadi Begum in 1892 to another person. His name was Mirza Sultan Muhammad. And only about 4 to 5 months after that marriage took place, Mirza Ahmad Beg, regarding whom the prophecy was that he would die within 3 years, he had a severe typhoid fever, and he died because of that fever. And that shook the family, the immediate family. Muhammadi Begum, wife of Mirza Ahmad Beg, Mirza Sultan Muhammad, who was the husband of Muhammadi Begum, and their entire family. And they repented, they sought forgiveness. They wrote to Hazrat Masih Maud for prayers. They had clearly seen the sign that Mirza Ahmed Beg had died and he had come under the wrath of Allah Ta'ala. And this was almost as a muhr on the family of Masih Maud that look, if you guys are not accepting the Imam of the age, then your progeny will be cut off. And the only progeny which will live longer would be the people who would connect themselves to Hazrat Masih Maud. So later on, the wife of Mirza Ahmed Beg accepted the promised Messiah. Mirza Sultan Muhammad, although he did not accept Ahmadiyyat in a formal way, but he always kept Hazrat Masih Maud in high esteem, and he revered him a lot, and he never uttered any word against Masih Maud. And then the son of Muhammadi Begum accepted Ahmadiyyat, and that's how their family repented. And then because of that, Mirza Sultan Muhammad lived, and he did not come under the wrath of Allah Ta'ala per the prophecy, because one other point to be understood here is that oftentimes when prophecies are made, they are conditional. And if certain conditions are met, Allah Ta'ala can change the destiny. Just like Allah Ta'ala changed the destiny of the people of Hazrat Yunus alayhi salam, who left his people with, he got so upset and desperate that he just left his people and said that these people are not going to accept the guidance. And then he learned that his people were forgiven. Why? Because these people repented and these people mended their ways and came under the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. So similarly, one person who ridiculed Promised Messiah ﷺ, who opposed him, who rejected this proposal which was under divine commandment, he came under the wrath of Allah Ta'ala, and Mirza Ahmed Beg died a miserable death. Whereas the other side of the family, who the part of Muhammadi Begum's family who repented and who did istighfar and said that we will not say anything against the promised Messiah ﷺ, and we will not be party to anyone who is ridiculing Masih Maud ﷺ or opposing him in his mission. They were and accepted him finally. They were saved. So now we come to 1882. The actual commandment from Allah Ta'ala to take bath. This happened, as I mentioned in previous dars, that in 1882 Hazrat Masih Maud had already received a revelation regarding his that Allah Ta'ala has commissioned him regarding his ministry. Kul inni umirtu wa ana awwalul mu'minin. But later on, in 1888, Hazrat Masih Maud received a revelation. This was after the passing of Bashir Ahmad, that he should now start a community, and he should take the oath of allegiance from the people who are devoted to him. Now this is important. I will read this passage from Masih Maud writing here, but just one footnote here, that it is important that the timing of this prophecy, if Hazrat Masih Maud was a worldly person, this was not a good time to start a community, or to say that now people should enter in the oath of allegiance with me. Why? Because everybody was mocking Hazrat Masih Maud about the death of Bashir Awwal, and his own, some of the people who had a relationship with him and who were sympathetic towards him, they were getting suspicious and they were getting doubtful, and they were getting uneasy about the whole situation of Bashir Awwal and his passing. So there was a test for the true believers in who is really dedicated to Hazrat Masih Maud and who is not. So this passing of Bashir Awwal basically siphoned the core group of Masih Maud salam, the core devotees, and the people who were on the periphery, on the fringes, who really didn't believe in him, so this was a test for them. So that's why the commandment was given that now you're given the authority to take oath of allegiance from the people and start a community. So Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam published on March 20th an announcement that the people who would like to take his oath should come to Ludhiana at the house of Sufi Ahmad Jan Sahib, and at his house the first bat took place. Inshallah, I will pick it up next time. Time is running short. From the first bat that took place in the March of 1889, and the blessed birth of Hazrat Mirza Bashiruddin Mahmud Ahmad. Inshallah, I will present that tomorrow. So we'll end here. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin.